Hello, my name is Disha Ahluwalia. I'm an archaeologist and I write regular columns in archaeology for ThePrint. And in this week's column, I'll be talking about one of the most important antiquities that we find at an archaeological site. It is considered as one of the mainstays of archaeology, and it is something which does not get destroyed or weathered very easily, and is not just an unusual or normal antiquity. It really holds the key to decoding the past. It helps us to decode the past, not only from one aspect of society, but holistically. We get to understand about the society, the social norms. We get to understand by economic trends and economic prosperity. We also get to learn about religious beliefs and trends, basic dietary habits, and various other aspects of our past which are intangible, and we are unable to find direct records of it in archaeological material. So I'll be talking about pottery and pottery making, and how pottery making is an unbroken chain, which is even today existence in a very similar fashion, but unfortunately it's dying a slow death. It's not progressing, it's not being promoted well by the government. And also slowly and steadily, the rulers set up, which used to have potters, used to thrive on pottery making, is slowly dying. The Kumhar community is facing a lot of economic challenges, and the reason is because we have now shifted our alliance to steel, we have shifted our alliance to glass and other various material to use, which we use in the kitchen and otherwise as well. We have really turned our backs on terracotta and other earthenwares, which actually were once upon a time mainstays of our community. Our community used to evolve around that. A lot of evolution of the culture is also depicted on it. So of course, I'll be talking about pottery, which according to researchers like archaeologists like M.K. Dwalekar, is considered as alphabet of archaeology. It is central to archaeological research, and the beginning of ceramics across the globe. The earliest dated samples come from China, but in Indian subcontinent, if you had to talk about the beginning of ceramic or pottery making, it goes to the Neolithic phase, the ceramic phase of Neolithic, which starts about 6,500 BCE. From there onwards, the pottery making has not stopped. It has only evolved and has given us beautiful examples of pottery, beautiful ceramic, which are housed in various museums across the world, not just in India, but a classical example of not just art but also science of pottery making. So once the pottery was introduced to the community, it was a time when society has moved to early farming, and from there onwards they needed something strong to make the food and store the food as well. So humans devised a baked clay, which is nothing but pottery. Terracotta is clay which is baked, and pottery are the vessels which are baked. So they become hard and they are non-destructible. Once that is experimented, shapes and forms have been started to also experiment with time. Initially, the early pottery that we find in the Neolithic context or early Neolithic context are usually handmade. They're a little coarser, they're not as fine as the later pottery, and are not wheel thrown. Eventually, with time, by 5,000, 6,000 to 5,500, we start finding the wheel made pottery. And a classical example of it are the pre-Harappan pottery, which we find at sites like Kodiji. We find sites like in Hakra Valley, in the Ravi phase of Harappa. These pottery are well navigated pottery, very fine pottery, and are also made of multiple. They are polychrome pottery. Even in fact, a site called Nal have beautiful polychrome pottery with various geometric patterns, animal figurines on it. So very early on in the stages of pottery making in the subcontinent, the early potters have really gone into uh, into experimenting with killing, experimenting with surface treatment, and not just in the Indus region, or in the Indo-Gangetic region, but also in early sites across the subcontinent, across the country. Wherever you find early pottery, there you can see that there is a gradual evolution. And once we stepped into the Bronze Age, the age of our cities, here the variety and variations of pottery has it's changed altogether. And one can see because potters are now expanding, they are interacting with different people with different needs and different trends that are existing in different parts of the world. They're also seeing foreign made pottery as well, which perhaps would have been an inspiration to them. So they start experimenting not just with the forms or shapes, but also start experimenting with the surface treatment. They also start experimenting with pyrotechnology. That is where we start getting grayware. We start eventually, then we get the painted grayware and the NBPW pottery, which are the markers of a culture. And these pottery are especially pottery like PGW and PW are deluxe wares, because the way they are made, the pyrotechnology, and the pyrotechnology, if you don't know, simple terms, it is the killing process, how potters maintain a particular temperature in the kiln, how they maintain the flow of oxygen. So whenever you see a bright red or a terracotta color pottery, know that in the kiln, when it was being baked, there was enough flow of oxygen. So which is why oxidization has happened, and the clay has changed color and has become a bright red terracotta color. If if you find a little grayish or blackish pottery, remember that in the kiln there must have been very less oxygen. There must have been reduction conditions where oxidization has not happened, which is why the pottery has changed color and it is now either gray or black. So in the case of the bright red Harappan pottery, the kilns had to be properly the temperature had to be properly maintained, and also the potters have to make sure about the flow of oxygen. They also have to make sure about the about how they place the pots, whether they're close to each other or in they're separated. So even the structure of the kiln used to be also had gone it through evolution, and a potter will choose a particular type of kiln in order to make a particular type of pot. So in the case of painted grayware, which is a slaty gray color, there the potter had to maintain a temperature, and also had to maintain a percentage of oxygen, and also create a particular type of reduction in the kiln, so that the pot gets that typical gray color. So you see, pottery making was not just an art. Potters were not just craftsmen, they were actually scientists. They were experimenting as they were going, because we find a lot of examples of experimentation that has happened, a lot of imitation that has happened, and at the same time, a lot of regionality which comes through the ceramic assemblage of the past. When we look at the present day potters, when we go and study the ethnoarchaeology, ethnography of the potters, and the practices and the community and the household, a potter's household, we get an understanding of how the potters in the past would work, because a lot of these tools and techniques have been carried forward for thousands of years. It's like an unbroken chain from the past. It's a continuity of tradition, which we do not acknowledge on a daily basis. It is similar to the shell working, which I have spoken a few months ago. You should check out the shell working essay that I have written on how the continuity is prevalent in our culture material and even today. So in case of potters as well, so I'll be talking about the personal explorations I have undertaken in the past, and how uh, pottery kilns and the potter's household, we find the similar evidence we find in the excavation as well. So I'll be talking about, there are different types of kilns. There are updraft kilns, there are open air kilns. Now updraft kilns and all have been found in Mehergarh and also in Harappa, but I'll be talking about a particular type of kiln which I've seen in majority. I've seen in Nepal, I've seen in Uttar Pradesh, I've seen around Delhi, I've seen in Haryana, I've also seen in Rajasthan. So majority of North India have that type of pottery kiln, which is a pit kiln. In the pit kiln, what happens in the potter's backyard or wherever the potter's workshop is, there a shallow pit is been dug out in the ground, where the first layer in that shallow pit is of a gray sand, which is balu, is been laid out. And along with that, when the kiln is there, the potters in the potter's workshop, there'll always be the tools like dabbers, paddles. There'll be these shells which have chipped base and they are used as scrapers. So these tools are even found during excavation. We find dabbers, we find paddles marks on the pottery. We don't find paddles because paddles most probably were made in wood, just like the present day paddles. So the wood have not survived, but we do find different types of dabbers because dabbers are made in terracotta. And so the dabbers have sort of continued. The shapes very interestingly remain the same. And it's a very interesting link from between the past and the present. And along with that, there will be a place where they would need the clay and there will be various additives. And then there will be a lot of wheeled out, created pots which will be there for drying. So there are 10 steps in pottery making. Of course, the studies say that different types of pottery, they could be more steps, they could be less steps, but broadly, I have divided into 10 steps. So the first step in the chain of operation is where a potter goes to the local place, maybe near a river. And potters usually have a particular place to get the clay, and the clay needs to have a particular ratio of silt or sand. It cannot be completely 100% clay because then it will break as it dries. So you have to add silt, you have to add include a bit of sand in it while you're navigating. So a potter would go to either its nearest water body, be it the lake or the river, get the clay home, and as per the pot, whatever pot he is making, and the reason why I say he is because even today, the laborious work is mostly done by men. There is a theory where people assume that in the past, when the pottery making had just began, it would have been a woman's job, but we don't have any direct evidence of it. We have direct evidence in terms of ethnoarchaeology, where we see men doing the laborious work and women are doing other chores. And even not only women, the children of the household, a potter's household, are also helping out. So it's a collective operation, right? So the first step is to get your clay from the nearest source, get it in your workshop, and you levitate it or sieve it, and then you knead it into your consistency that you needed. Once that has happened, you let it air out for a while. Don't let it dry. There's always a wet cloth on the kneaded clay. It's like how we knead atta at home, if you have ever done it. We knead atta for chapatis and we always cover it up. We don't let it air dry, because then it will become very brittle. So we either, I've always observed my mom putting a wet cloth on it, or cover it with the lid. So similarly, the potters also, when they need a clay, they keep a stack of clay in a dark area, corner where there's hardly any sunlight of their workshop, and they cover it with a wet gunny bags or wet cloth. And the potter takes out a chunk of clay. He rotates the wheel, and if it's a hand rotated wheel nowadays, you have electric wheels. So if you have electric wheels, you just plug it on. If you have an hand rotated wheel, so it's a process. You have to put the wheel in certain places, in a certain position, and then you put a stick in a perforation on the wheel. You rotate it slowly, and then you increase the speed where the wheel is rotating fast, and you throw the clay on it, and then you don't let it stop. So the rotation of the wheel is an ongoing process. Whenever the wheel is slowing down, you rotate it faster. So once the potter throws the clay on the wheel, which is the second step, that is where the potter starts to fashion or shape the clay into a particular form or a vessel or pot. So at times it's done in bits and pieces. Like if you have a handle attached to it, so handle will be made separately. If it's a very big pot, it'll be made as per the coiling techniques. It'll be made in bits and pieces, which will be then you know attached and connected, gets connected to it's sort of you will see various marks on the striation marks and various marks on the inner side of pot, where you can see how the various parts of the pots have been sort of they are connected. So there it depends on the shape or the form the potter is wanting to achieve. As per that, the wheel is now rotated and the shape is created. The next step is, once the pot is shaped, once the vessel is shaped, it's air dried. And it's air dried for a few days. If it's winters, it's air dried for at least 4 to 5 days. If it's really hot, it's air dried for only a day or so. And once that is done, the potters then use various tools like paddle, dabber, or scrapers. They scrape off the excess clay to give it a more smooth, sharp finish. There, if needed, at times even the sun-baked pots are then again put on wheel, on snow wheel, and then they are like given a final finish touch. In some instances, and if it's a globular pot and it's needed, its shape needs to be sort of corrected, the dabbers and paddles are used. So dabber is put inside, and then you have the paddle, which sort of shapes, give the pot a much better shape, corrects any flaws which are there, and also if there are any cracks or anything, the dabber and the paddle sort of minimizes it so that it doesn't crack up in the kiln. Once that has happened, it is then treated, that is which we call as a surface treatment. Whether there is a slip, which is the coat of so this is the fifth or the fifth step, I've lost count, I'm sorry. But then a slip is sort of added, or a wash of color. And our colors are usually earth colors, hematite, ochre, etc., kaolin. These colors are used. So once that is done and it's dried, and then usually the painted motifs are made. And interestingly, after the dabbing, dabber and paddle step, this step is undertaken by the girls and the women of the family. I have met few women in the potters community who've been doing this, have learned this work from their grandmothers, and then they got married within the potter's family, another potter's family, and then the work sort of goes on. So it's not just the man's work which is generational. It's not just man's work which is passed on as generation, as inheritance from generation to generation, but also a woman's work, which is the work of giving that motive, decorating the pot, and doing other things is also sort of generational. It's a generational wealth, right? So once that is done, it is again dried. The paint or whatever slip is let to dry for some time. And meanwhile that is happening, the potter is preparing the kiln. So once you have the shallow pit, there is a gray sand. On top of it, at times they also put the dry grass or husk on it, and then they start putting pots. Either they stack up or they place it horizontally in next to each other, and then they take the broken pots, which are like the discarded pots from the previous work, and they fill up the gap. So there should not be any gap. And slowly they start making like a heap. So there is a shallow pit, on top of it the pots heap, and then they start stacking with the broken pot shards. Once they do that, they start adding again the grass, the dry up grass, and then they take a mix of cow dung, clay and water, and then they create like a plaster. And then they plaster the entire heap that you have. At times in the corner, there will be an air duct, or there are some cases where at the top there is an air duct. If it's a very big kiln, usually there are two inlays and outlet where in one place there will be where they will fire the kiln, and other on top will be where the smoke will come out. If it's a small kiln, I have seen both the coal, the burnt coal will be added from the same outlet as the smoke will come out. So it depends on the size of the kiln as well. Once the plastering is done, then the kiln is fired, and then it takes a few days for the pots to be baked. It's not a simple process. About 750 degrees Celsius, majority of pots are baked, and once it takes about 2-3 days, for pottery to be baked. Once it's baked and the fire has died down, potter waits for the kiln to cool down, does not open it immediately. Once the kiln is cooled down, there's no smoke, the kiln is completely cooled down, they break the plaster, they take out all the, because now the grass is sort of dried, sorry, it's burnt, so there's absolutely nothing but the plaster. It remains that clay and cow dung plaster, so they had to break it, they have to remove it, and then piece by piece they take out each pot, and they then segregate which pot is well fired, which pot is not. If a pot which has some minor um, defect, they sort of cover it up or they color it again. Today many pots are colored after firing, not pre-firing. I have not seen many pots which are pre-fired. This painting process happens after the pots are pre-fired. A lot of the pots are made out of mold and not made out of made on wheel by hand, so a lot of molding has also come in place. So a lot of technicalities have changed over a period of time, but this is the process. And after the pots have been given the final touch, then they are brought out in the market, and then consumers buy them. These are the 10 steps of pottery making, which when we pick up a tiny potsherd in our hand, when we pick up a tiny potsherd, we take that tiny potsherd and we go back, we pick up that thread and we go back to the first step. We have to look at the pottery and look at those steps again, reconstruct those steps with the help of science, with the help of technology available to us. Today, we are also doing lipid and organic residue analysis. We do a lot of other analysis like XRD, XRF, SEM to understand the pottery and its core and the science behind pottery making. So pottery in archaeology, which was once used to name cultures, which was once used to date cultures, have become is still an integral part. But unfortunately, the pottery as an art has died. Recently, a study was conducted in 2021. It was published in Demography India, volume 59, Sharma et al. And that work clearly says that there are economic challenges. The work was done in Nohar region of Hanumangarh district, an area which houses the Harappan side of Kalibanga. That work says that there are economic challenges, the raw material price has gone up, the younger generation is unwilling to take up pottery making as a profession, so they are finding new avenues, more profitable avenues, because there is absolutely no aid from the government. There's no recognition from us, by us, the society, which is a sad thing, because potters actually have shaped our culture. We are here because we had potters making pots for us. We are here because potters were there experimenting it. They were shaping our culture. We are here. We have evolved from terracotta dishes to steel plates, from terracotta plates to steel plates. We have progressed only because at one point of time we had potters, and that art has continued for thousands of years, for over 7,000 years, and today it is dying slowly. There are certain centers like Molela. You have at Molela, which is commercially becoming more viable and it's commercially promoted. But then the rural sector, where the potters, the smaller potter community is dying. Whenever I go to a village, I always make sure I go to a potter, and I have seen that the potters always say that there used to be about 100 to 50 to 100 houses in one area, which used to be a potter's community. Today, there are only about 5, 6 people who are still doing it. And there are little elderly in the family who are still continuing this work. The younger generation has given it up completely. So I hope with this, I would have thrown some light on the unsung heroes of our past, the potters, given you a glimpse of pottery making of the past and present. And the moment I say about the past, similar pit kilns have also been found from various sites. Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, at site of Binjore also a pit kiln was found at the Rakhanwala Dera, updraft kiln. So you see even the structure of killing has not changed. I have also read somewhere that the reason is because we have socially become very biased. We become very biased. We start treating one society on the basis of certain criterias in a unjust way. Because of that, the society, but that particular community has not grown. I've also read somewhere in anthropological work that the moment you stop including science and craft, that is where the craft dies, and which is true, because for me, pottery making is a science, not an art. So I hope with this, I would have created more awareness about pottery making. So the next time you happen to go somewhere, go visit your local potters community or kumhars, and pottery or terracotta should not be for health freaks. Now, I've seen the trend of health freaks using terracotta or copper bottles instead of plastic, which you should actually. They are more sustainable, but it should not be limited to certain people. And I want to tell those people who sell these terracotta bottles for hundreds and hundreds of rupees, for thousands of rupees, in fact, stop doing that. Make pottery or terracotta utensils and vessel available to people, and introduce them so that people who uh, they don't have to go get into this rat race of buying expensive utensils, be it the steel or otherwise. Terracotta is very affordable even today. If you go to a proper workshop or terracotta workshop, you will find it at a very cheaper rate. So it's economical, it's sustainable. So it should not be limited to only influencers on social media. It should become a norm. We should not be using terracotta wares only on occasions. And I'm sure that we can't switch it completely, but at least there can be some inclusion in some way or the other, which can help pottery making, which can help the survival of pottery, the art and the science of pottery making. So thank you so much for watching. Till next time, and please make sure to read my essay and subscribe to the Print YouTube channel and follow them on their various social media platform. Thank you once again.